Hey, it's Liam Killen. I'm back with some OPZ love for you guys, and this time we're going to be using the sampler. The sampler itself is great and it's pretty easy to use. Oh man, you can't go wrong with ZA. Okay, so where was I? The sampler itself is great. It's easy to use. There are a few things that I didn't think of along the way. So the bottom line is that I'm going to be telling you guys these things, and it could potentially save you a lot of time and trouble and just going back and forth. And of course, I'll be featuring and giving a walkthrough of a track that I created. And giving you useful OPZ tips along the way. I do have some other OPZ content as well. I'll be linking that up above and also in the description. I've done a few other walkthroughs, and my goal is to get through a substantial amount of what the OPZ has to offer. That being said, it's pretty much impossible to show everything that this thing can do because it's a different workflow from one person to another. I'm just gonna show you how I use it. The first thing I'll show you is how to actually upload a sample onto your OPZ, which is quite simple. All you need to do is plug the USB end of the OPZ cable into your computer and the other side into the OPZ. One important point, and this will save you time for sure, if you're uploading a drum sample, make sure that you upload it onto one of the drum tracks, and same thing with the melodic sample, make sure you upload it onto one of the melodic tracks. This is really important later on when we start using the live performance function, so that's this button here. Another important thing is that the bank that you upload the sample onto, you won't be able to use stock sounds on that bank, so it's occupied by the sample. Like I said, I'm uploading a melodic sample, so in this case, I'm going to use the chord track. The next step is to click on an empty bank, hit the track button, and if you haven't uploaded any samples, there should only be 5 banks that are occupied. So in this case, I've already uploaded the sample, and that's on bank 7. But you know what? We're going to create a new bank just so I can give you a thorough walkthrough here. Bank 8, you see that it loads, and now you have bank 8. To enter into actual sample recording mode, hit stop and record, and you'll see that there's a green and blue light. And now you're ready to record. I chose to upload a sample directly from my desktop. Just make sure that in your audio settings that the output is set to OPZ. Unfortunately, the OPZ is not quite as smart as the OP1 in terms of sampling. On the OP1, you could just hold down a key, and when the sample starts playing, that's when it starts recording. But the OPZ isn't quite that intuitive, so you kind of have to time it so you get the most part of your sample. Know what I mean? Also, another side note here is that if you sample a melodic track, you only have a 6-second sample. Whereas if you sample onto a drum track, you have 12 seconds. Obviously, if I could, I would have taken the 12-second sample for the drums, but there's a method to my madness. Okay, so once again, make sure you're in record mode, green, blue light. We'll time it perfectly. Here we go.
Okay, hold up on this one. Before we continue here, I just want to let you guys know that the sample you're about to hear, along with a bunch of other ones, are included in the LK Melodic Sample Pack, which is available on my website. Take a look. You won't be disappointed. Ta-ta!
That's great. So there's a little snippet at the beginning that I'm going to take out, but I don't think I'm going to get much better than that. For this part, I'm going to whip out my iPhone. It just becomes a lot easier to have a visual of where we're actually chopping. So I've actually downloaded the OPZ app. It looks like this. So I'll click on that. Make sure your Bluetooth is turned on. You press scan. Notice that it's offline now, so you have to actually spin it over. And you notice that on the diagram, it tells you to push this button. So that's this button right here. So I'll push that, the blue light turns on, and now let's scan it. It's still unconnected, click on it, connected. Next step, we want to chop this wave. We're going to just chop the beginning part so that it starts right at the beginning of the sample. To do that, I'm using the green knob and I'm twisting it to the right. Once again, unfortunately, there's another limitation here. If you upload a melodic sample, you're not able to chop it up with all of these different keys. It's basically just one full sample, and if you want to pitch it, you have the option of doing that. But you can't really get into the sample and chop different parts of it up. It's just one full sample. Definitely not quite as intuitive as the OP1. Okay, great. So we're done with the sample. We're just going to turn the click on and record along with it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
In this example, my initial thought was to do like a 4 on the floor kick sort of thing, like but I think I want to expand on that. I'm going to add different kick sounds within the pattern. Here, I'll show you what I mean. let's head to the tempo button. You have control here over the swing. I just noticed that I reverse swung the track, so it's kind of a weird subdivision. I'm going to bring it back to where it was. Right there. So when it turns green, it means that it's right in the middle. It's not reverse swung or swung. Right down the middle. I really like the way that kind of bounces off the Wurlitzer sample, so yeah, let's keep that. I'm also feeling right away that the rest of the drums should be upbeat and syncopated, so we'll head in that direction. Let's find like a high-pitched sort of perk sound, maybe not hi-hats, but we'll head to the perk bank, this one here. I already know which trigger I want to use on this perk track, so let's select every single note. So all the ones that are lit up. So now they're flashing green. We're going to head to this trig here. Default is 5. We're going to go to 0, which is random. So now every note that plays is a random velocity. Yeah, that's super cool. It adds more of a human element to this perk track. Kind of what I'm going for. Snare, let's keep that syncopated feel. I'm kind of a sucker for that 70s fat sort of snare tone. Let's find it. That's the one. I really want this snare pattern to match the flow of the sample, which is 5 bars long, so let's emulate that. Track button, shift, 5 bars. One last percussive element, let's head to hi-hats and we'll find something that fits. Just to do it, just to mess with things, track button, shift, let's make it a 3-bar pattern. Yeah, that's feeling really good. Okay, we're done with the drums. We're gonna take the screen out of here. I'm getting tired of the screen. Readjust. Next up is bass. Slap it to bass. Here is where the OPZ has a major workflow plus. I would say better than the OP1 in this aspect. For now, we won't worry too much about finding a sick bass tone. We'll just find a bass line that fits and then we'll worry about the tone later. So hit the bass, track button, bass. I want to add some variation to the bass line, so we'll make it a 5-bar pattern. Now that this bass line has been laid down, we have the luxury of being able to go back and change the tone of the bass if we want. This is so efficient and probably one of my favorite parts of the OPZ. this track is already sounding pretty good and full. I'm gonna add one last element to it. So let's head to this quarter note here, which is lead synth. There's one preset here that I really like. Let's find it. That's it. Once again, we'll make this a 2-bar pattern and we'll try recording something. A lot of the presets on the OPZ are spot on. In fact, for those of you who may not have pulled the trigger yet, I've actually made a video that goes through all the presets. Maybe you want to check it out, see what it has to offer. And of course, I'll link that up above and also in the description down below. So in terms of composition, we've completed all the elements of this track. Let's move on to the performance functions. To get to the performance functions, hold the track button and press this little man here. So these functions are divided between percussive and melodic elements. So everything from this F to this E affects the percussions, and everything from this F to this E affects melodic stuff. And going back to what I said at the beginning of the video, this is where loading your melodic sample to a melodic track becomes very important. In the original version, I messed up and I recorded a melodic sample onto a drum track because naturally I wanted to have more control over my sample and just a longer sample in general. And I'll show you what a mess this becomes. Such a mess. For those of you who are not familiar with the OPZ, the performance functions are not supposed to do that. So follow my lead here. We'll head back to the track we just created. Clearly that's a lot cleaner. That being said, even if you upload the sample properly, there's still a few limitations with some of the performance functions. I'll give you an example. So if you use either of these performance functions, I'm pretty sure that they're both loop. It just doesn't work with the sample. Unless you're going for that really messy experimental sound. I don't know, for me it just doesn't work. I know that these performance functions need to be covered in more detail. I'm actually gonna have a new video on that coming out pretty soon. It's just too fun! And that about covers it. Hopefully that gave you guys some insight. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you're into this sort of content, please make sure to like and subscribe. I'll give you like a big virtual hug if you do. Going around there you go. This channel has been consistently growing pretty much every day, and it's just cool to see that. It really just makes the whole thing worth it, and so I really appreciate your guys' support. Thank you. And now we'll be going out on the original version of this track in 3, too hot.